Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our March Florida Broker Roundtable on ways to differentiate yourself from the crowd, hosted by Robert Milligan. Have you heard that AJI has recently partnered with Conversion? If you're not familiar with Conversion, it is the #1 lead generation, CRM, and automation system. Check out our FAQs page by going to the Allison James University dashboard and clicking on Allison James has partnered with KV Core platform. With that being said, I would now like to pass it over. Good afternoon, Robert.
Good afternoon, Tori. Thanks for tuning in here, everybody. And this is one of my favorite things to speak about. And in a perfect world, hopefully this is a little bit of an interactive conversation. And, I've been in this business a while. This is my 16th year as a realtor, and I think 10 or 11 years now, I think about 11 as a broker, with quite a few hundred agents for most of those years. I've definitely observed patterns of agents that succeed versus agents that just aren't doing too terribly much, or or basically experiencing any success in a meaningful way. And so there's some observations I've made that hopefully will be helpful for you. And I think that in a market like we're experiencing right now, where things are going very well and realtors are joining the business, and Florida, I know they're joining the business in droves. We about a year and a half ago had about 5,500 realtors in my market area in Sarasota, and now we're up to about 7,500. So, there's lots of new realtors entering the space, lots of people entering this industry. I think that, there is room for people to come in and to differentiate themselves from the crowd and offer value, because, ultimately what we get paid for our service is a direct reflection of the value that we're bringing to the marketplace. And customers do have a lot of choices. Apparently, they can get a similar service, arguably, from in my market area from 7,500 other people. So, so why choose you? And if you're not confident why a customer should choose you, then they're probably not going to feel that confidence exude from you, and they probably won't choose you. So it's important, I think, to think about these things in advance, and also just work on yourself a little bit, because you do need to be confident in what you have to offer. And I think that part of the way that you establish confidence, again, we're not selling a product, we're selling a service. So there's nothing about a product that is superior. It's all about our service, and a lot of those things are intangible. So it's hard to quantify those things, but sometimes it takes a little bit of experience, a little bit of track record, where you start to feel more confident about yourself. But if you're getting started out, I think that definitely helps if you feel like you've done your part to be equipped with knowing how to do a great job. And I think that aside from industry specifics, I think that it really helps to just work on yourself a little bit. And all of my career, and before I even really started working, I started reading a lot, and started with lots of self-help type books and psychology books, leadership books, and then real estate specific books, of course. But I think that, even more than real estate specific, I think it's good to work on yourself in terms of leadership. And that might sound kind of unusual, because you might not think of yourself as leading anyone necessarily. But I think that ultimately your customers are hiring you for your leadership. They're not hiring you for information about real estate, because more and more they're able to get that on the internet. They're hiring you for your ability to articulate back to them what they're expressing as their goals, their objectives, and then you can decipher that, and then articulate it back to them, to make sure that you're understanding this is the outcome that the customer is hopeful for, and then you can help connect the dots and lead them to that end result that they're hopeful for. So that's what you're ultimately here for. So I do think it makes a lot of sense to spend some time studying leadership, and if you're looking for recommendations, I'd be happy to give some. I've read probably every book imaginable that I've found, at least, on leadership. And psychology books are great, because ultimately this is a people business. And one that I really liked was Influence by Robert Cialdini. But psychology books are great because, again, we're dealing with people, and we're dealing with emotional situations and times. Whenever people are moving, it's very stressful. Even if, even a rational person who understands the process can sometimes just get stressed out when they're moving. So I think it's good just to know how to handle people, and because ultimately our business is built around people. It's about creating relationships. It's about ideally doing a great job and getting referred, recommended to their warm networks, their friends, their family. So I think it's good to spend time, brushing up on psychology, and ultimately the contracts themselves too. I think that it makes a lot of sense if you don't feel like you're an encyclopedia with the contracts that you're dealing with. Not that we're going to, give a lot of specific advice, because we can't practice law without a license, of course, but you should definitely really know how to interpret the contract, what all the things mean in it, and how to basically be looking at it upside down across the table from somebody, and go through the contracts that you're using point by point, whether that be a listing agreement, whether that be a contract itself, whether that be all the addendums and like appraisal contingency addendums, just whatever you can do to feel like you're able to play the game of chess, because that's, I think, really what we're doing when we're structuring contracts or reviewing contracts to be chosen by a seller. It's really a big game of chess, and there's pros and cons and advantages and disadvantages and different strategies. And so I feel like one of the ways to get confident in what you have to offer is by understanding and being able to interpret the contracts thoroughly enough that you feel like any other choice that a customer makes would be a mistake, because you feel like you're better at interpreting the contract than anybody else, or at least equal to, if not greater than. So those are some of the ways to just be confident, because I feel like ultimately, if you're not confident in what you have to offer, it's going to be difficult to start really standing out and differentiating yourself from the crowd. And if you feel like maybe there's a lot of work that in between now and and making money, because we need to get into this business, and oftentimes people, when they start in this career, they don't realize there's a lot to learn and a lot to become proficient in, and in the meantime they need to start actually making some money. So if you think that you're a little bit overwhelmed, maybe it's a good idea to team up with somebody in your local market that has some momentum, that knows the business, somebody that you can complement. And you can complement maybe their weaknesses, and they can complement yours. Somebody maybe that's better at talking with people and making deals happen, and they're not so great at paperwork or marketing. Maybe that's a good approach, is to team up. And I think that also a team approach, whether it be formal, whether it be informal, it's good to have another realtor to edify. And that's really how I got started, which might sound kind of strange. But I got started when I was just 19 years old, and I'd never really bought or sold a house for myself. I didn't really know what I was doing or how to do it. But ultimately, I teamed up with a local leader in my marketplace, and I just started talking and having conversations with buyers and sellers about how amazing of a person that this guy was, and that if they're serious about buying or selling, that he's the magic man, that he's going to know exactly what to do to make a deal happen. And it was interesting because people rather than feeling like I was being pushy, they actually enjoyed me sharing that knowledge, almost like I was giving them a gift. And it's kind of the same way if somebody's moving into town, and you don't usually feel awkward about telling them about an amazing dry cleaner or an amazing restaurant or amazing lawn service or some other service that person's definitely going to need. To most people, receive that as a gift, and they're really happy to have that information. So it kind of invokes the same thing if you're teaming up with somebody, to have another realtor that you can edify and share how great of a realtor that this person is, and you happen to be on their team, and there's no conflict of interest with that. But definitely is an easier conversation to have than talking about how fantastic you are personally, because most people don't enjoy that sort of a person that goes around bragging and talking about how wonderful they are, and most people aren't comfortable talking about that as well, which is probably for the best. So that's just an idea. Maybe to team up with somebody and edify somebody, and customers generally appreciate having that kind of information shared with them. But there's some ways that we can stand out with buyers and sellers, and I feel like in this market, in a competitive market where people have lots of choices, you can't just do what a customer expects, because that's not remarkable. the root of the word remarkable is to make remarks about you. Do something remarkable so that people make remarks about you. And the minimum baseline needs to be something that they were not expecting. And I can't say exactly what the right answer would be for a buyer, but you need to just be strong basically and be sensitive to what that buyer is actually needing, because people choose you as a realtor because they believe that you're going to bring more energy, more passion, and more enthusiasm to helping them get what they want than anybody else. And that's simply what it comes down to. We're here to fill orders. We're not here to, be the best at social media or be the best blogger or be the best blogger or be the, whatever. We're here to fill orders, and people either believe that you can do that and believe that you're going to bring more energy to filling their order or not. And so, we go against realtors all the time for listing presentations that have giant track records. And I have new agents in our market that win listing presentations and win listings even over experienced agents, because customers believe that they're going to bring more energy and more enthusiasm, that maybe the experienced agent with the big track record, maybe that person's too comfortable and too complacent now, and maybe this deal doesn't matter to them as much as it's going to matter to a more inexperienced agent. So I think that you need to be authentic and just own whatever position that you're in, and not be self-conscious that you don't have a big track record if that's the case, because again, people are just choosing you because they believe that you're going to bring more passion and energy to help them get what they want than anybody else will. And so so standing out, I would say, just with a buyer, be sensitive to things that they need. Just ask lots of great questions, and that will give you great answers, and give nice closing gifts. Just do things above and beyond that they would be expecting. And be a great leader. And here's, back to why I recommend studying leadership books, because what you don't want to do is be an order taker. You need to be a leader. And, people don't even know what they want necessarily. So I think that it's important for you to, whenever you're working with a buyer, the way I look at working with the buyer should almost be like working, and sellers too, for that matter, the way that that you see trainers work with customers at the gym. When people get a trainer at the gym, they don't want to do the push-ups, they don't want to do the sit-ups, whatever exercises the trainer recommends. They don't want to wake up early if that's the case, but they want the desired outcome. They want that result. So a trainer at the gym isn't going to be an order taker and say, oh, you don't feel like doing this today? Okay, well, that's fine. We can do something else. No, the trainer at the gym is going to tell them, all right, here's what we're doing today. I don't want to hear your excuses. I know that it's not comfortable, but you hired me for this intended result, so this is what we're going to do. And so I think that that's important, that you kind of obviously need to be professional, but also take the same posture and the same stance with your customers, that, whenever tough conversations need to be had, I think that it's important that you have the strength and the leadership to have those and connect all the dots for them. I also don't think that you should, working with buyers, don't be a tour guide. I think that you should start with 3 to 5 properties and just let them know whenever they want to see 40 or 50 other houses, let them know that, you're in the marketplace every day, and, you're not there to confuse them and wear them out. You interpret this data and you see all these properties, and your job is to pick out the 3 to 5 best representations of what their criteria, is in the market right now. And they can see those houses and then recalibrate from there. So, again, take leadership. And, I think you also just need to know things that the internet doesn't know, and know things about the customer that the internet doesn't know, obviously. And, what I mean by that, there's a lot of good data on the internet, of course, and the customers are more privy to that than they've ever been, which is really great. I don't have any problem with that at all, because we have well-educated, well-informed customers. But, it helps us focus on things that are more important. But there are things about neighborhoods, things about lifestyle, things about our local community that you really can't find on the internet. And so you just need to have some local knowledge. And then, of course, you just need to ask really great questions to know why a customer is driven to make the decision, and try to, complete their desired outcome, whatever they're trying to buy, and then help bring all those details together for them. And Zillow can't do that. Zillow, can't connect all the dots to help them get what they want, but you definitely can. So those are some things about buyers, ways to stand out. I think that, with sellers, you should definitely be extremely confident in your marketing. I think that, it's easy enough now with a little bit of forethought to be well ahead of the video game, using Matterport regularly. If you've never seen that, you can Google Matterport and see those 3D types of tours. Those are some of the minimum things that we do in our local market for our listings. And if the listing is high end enough, you could maybe even do some marketing in advance just to show what you're capable of. And that, to me, would be a great way of being remarkable, where a customer could make remarks about you. So, there have been times for, multi-million-dollar listings that we're competing for that we would produce a marketing video of the property in advance just to give them a taste of what we can do, so that, they'd be more comfortable making a decision to choose us. Something else that I think, at a minimum you need to do to stand out is communicate weekly with your sellers. If you let any more time than a week go by, unfortunately, even if you're working hard, the seller just assumes that you're not, and they are thinking all kinds of things that become more and more derogatory over time about you and about realtors in general. So communicate weekly, even if you have no updates. Just let them know that, I don't have any new news, but I just want you to know that I'm working and I don't have any new news, and that sometimes is enough. But communicate weekly at a minimum. And another thing that I think that we do, we make sellers aware of on our listing presentations, is that there are a lot of interesting ways that we can reverse engineer our MLS data right now. And I know that most of you have a similar platform to the one that we're using. We use Matrix, which is part of MFR MLS. But whenever we list a new property, we can see which realtors have somebody that's set up with an auto search, an auto save, that matches with our new listing that we just put in. So over time, if we find ourselves, not getting a lot of showings, or kind of stalling or going sideways a little bit, we can reach out to those realtors and just, let them know, and they don't get any notice of this. So we can let them know that, hey, you had a buyer or a saved search that matched with our new listing, and just wanted to see if there's any way that we could help facilitate getting a showing set up, or anything else we could do to help encourage offers. So so those are ways to differentiate yourself. And again, I'd love to get your ideas if we have any interaction here as we go along. And Tori, feel free to stop me if anybody has any questions or comments or anything. But and then creative ways to market for new prospects. First, before I talk about that, I would like to at least preface it with the fact that I don't believe most realtors need more prospects. They just need to know how to qualify the ones that they have a little bit better. And to me, I think that a realtor really only needs 3 buyers and or 3 sellers at any given time. Most newer realtors start with buyers. But if you're good at asking questions and figuring out if somebody has an urgent need to actually be living somewhere 45 days from now or 60 days from now, and you have 3 of those kinds of buyers, that's really all that you need. And so the question that I always asked myself when I was, really getting my business started was, do I have 3 buyers with an urgent need, or do I not? If I did, I would go fill the orders. And if I didn't, I would go sit in an open house somewhere until I had those buyers, and then fill the orders and then repeat. And, really there's not a lot more to this business than that, and you just need to figure out, and not fool yourself that if you have a lot of buyers, but none of them actually have to be living in a new house within a defined period of time, maybe those buyers are going to be better off just being on an auto email drip, and you're not really putting a lot of intentional effort into them until they do have a specific deadline that they have to move by. So I think it's important to qualify that. And I think that, in terms of creative ways, there's a lot of new data aggregator services. Like, for instance, we use in our area a system called Vulcan 7 that aggregates expired listings and FSBO properties, so that you can reach out and try to prospect with those people. And then the most creative way that helped me connect with buyers and sellers a lot, especially getting my business started, was to personally be a buyer of real estate. Put yourself in the marketplace, or work closely with someone that that you could easily write offers for, like a repeat investor. Somebody that would be available to buy something that made sense at any given moment. And if that sounds kind of strange or kind of aggressive to you, I mean, I feel like if you think about it, if today we found a house that was worth $200,000, but it could be purchased, this afternoon for $100,000, but it was here, for limited time only. You had to have it under contract this afternoon. Otherwise, obviously a deal like that, if it ever existed, would be gone. So, if you don't have somebody, including yourself, that you feel confidently could have the wherewithal to put a property like that under contract and move forward and make a quick decision, then, you definitely need to get somebody like that in your life if you're not in a position to do that kind of deal yourself. But if you put yourself in the marketplace, and here's, back to the creative way to get new prospects, put yourself in the market, you're going to meet a lot of people with a lot of interesting circumstances and scenarios. And, you'd be surprised. We assume incorrectly that most sellers' main objective was to net the highest possible proceeds. And that is just not necessarily always true. Some sellers want to make a deal happen with a certain time frame, a certain period of time, and they prioritize that over the actual amount that they're getting. And while most people want something within reason, they are oftentimes willing to take less than market value to make a deal happen quickly. So that's one of the questions that I always asked when expired or for sale by owner, on prospecting calls would be, if I were, just out of curiosity, on an expired listing especially, if I were able to bring you an offer today that was just a touch below market value, would that be something that you'd be open to having a look at? And you'd be surprised how many people say yes. And then it's interesting, if you are able to do that, to see where that goes. But for me, that's a key indicator if that's a listing that I'm interested in accepting or not, because, we don't want to work with buyers who are never going to buy. And in the same token, we want to qualify sellers to make sure they're worthy of our time or involvement, because, it's not just about us trying to communicate and convince customers to work with us, but I think, especially whenever you've experienced some success and your time is more valuable, you're qualifying them to see if they're a good match for you too, because we don't want to be working with a seller who is unrealistic and is most likely not going to sell. And more importantly, they don't have an urgent need that they do have to actually sell for some reason. So try to isolate ourselves from those experiences as much as we can. It is just part of the business that sometimes you're going to be working with people that are more difficult than others, and that's part of it. So you can never completely weed that out. But as much as we can, we want to encourage situations that have a higher probability of a successful outcome and a successful sale. So I think that's a great question to ask a seller is, when you're qualifying them, would you be open to reviewing an offer that's a touch below market value? If I could bring you that today. And if the answer is yes, then, that is an interesting seller and an interesting conversation to have. And, sometimes there are times that truly the best solution might be for you or your investor that you're closely connected to. Maybe the best solution is for you to purchase that house rather than list it and just, make a deal happen. Because, if you take your realtor glasses off for a little bit and just analyze what's actually going on here, we are in a marketplace. We're here to fill orders. And I think that, it's easy, especially as a newer person coming into this business, to just not know exactly what you're supposed to do. Or, there's a lot of third-party services that are all enticing to sign up. That you feel like as you're being advertised to that you really need that service, otherwise you're not having as high of a chance of being successful, and you don't know if you should be building your website or blogging, or it's easy to get distracted. And I think if you just keep it simple and just realize that we're in a marketplace, we're here to fill orders, we're here to help customers get what they want. And if you appear to be in a position to devote more time and energy to helping somebody get what they want, ultimately that's what it primarily comes down to. So I hope that those are some good things that are memory joggers for you. And, ideally I can have these kind of conversations with any of you whenever you'd like, or, ideally would love to have these kind of conversations live and online, because, this is certainly not a comprehensive list. You guys have all been doing a lot of things a lot better than I've done over the years as well. And we all have strengths and weaknesses, but yeah, that's basically the thought, Tori. And if there's any questions, comments, anything, just let me know.
I don't see any questions right now, but this video is live on Facebook as well. So if you guys have questions later on and want to leave a comment on the video, feel free. Robert, I can tag you in it later on if any comments come in or any questions.
Yeah, fantastic.
Let me see. Derek Golden just said, thanks, Robert. Great information. So
Good. Glad you appreciate it, Derek.
yeah. So with that said, thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you, Robert, for another great broker roundtable. We will see you guys next month in April. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye, Robert.